Hello, this is AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I am Keaton Shaw. It's a pleasure to be in this seat to take over from some seasoned host that came before me. But I'm in this position now, and there is a lot that I'm grateful for, and I'm thankful for being here. But ladies and gentlemen, we do have a packed program for you this morning. As we start off the conversation, in a moment, we will welcome Ronald John. He's a psychologist with 30 years experience to speak about an article he wrote. It was published in the daily newspaper about children being tested before entering the school system. We'll get into that in a moment. And later on, we will welcome two very young producers here in Trinidad and Tobago, film producers, as they speak about their upcoming feature as sponsored by the Trans-Tobago Film Festival. And later on, we'll get an update as it relates to negotiations between the Trans-Tobago Fire Services Association and the Ministry of National Security, and what came out of that meeting, which was described as extremely disappointing last week. But as we start this morning's program, I am privileged to welcome to the program via Zoom Mr. Ronald John. He's with us this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Keith. How are you?
I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing great.
Well, thank you for joining me. I read with great interest this column. It stood out to me as I read through the newspapers last week about children being tested before entering the school system. Now, given the fact that most recently a report was published indicating that some 2,500 students dropped out between the year 2020 and 2022, and you elaborated on the fact that 151 primary schools actually made up for this particular figure, why did you say that you were not entirely surprised?
Well, if I can go back even before that report came out, maybe even 10, 15 years ago, when I was in the education system, we had issues with children dropping out, with children being truant. And as a matter of fact, I was very surprised that the recent numbers was that low. And I am sure that with even greater investigations, that number would certainly have been higher. But that's the number they gave, and that's the number we're working with.
Mm-hmm. Well, given the historical context, you just mentioned even 10, 15 years ago, this was the situation that was happening. And the fact that you further said the article also exposed that some of these children turned to a life of crime. Is this a breakdown of the education system, a breakdown of the family home, a breakdown in society? Is it a combination of all these factors?
Very good question, Keith. Keith, it is a combination of all those questions, but and as a result, it has to be a combination of approaches to get us from that place. It seems that, and I just don't want to say this government, I would say past governments have always taken a single approach to dealing with crime. To deal with crime and its offshoot or its precursor being dropout in school, all the problems they have in schools, because not enough has been done to help children in the early stages of their education to ensure that they're functioning at an appropriate developmental level for their age group. Mm-hmm. If enough testing was done at an early age, then I think that many students will not fall through the cracks if they had good teachers. And I mean good teachers. I mean teachers who are well-trained, who understand the developmental level of children, who understands where a child should be at 3 years, where a child should be at 7 years, and who are able to identify early, even if they're not able to do it from a scientific point of view, but they could identify that something seems to be wrong. Mm-hmm. that child could could do some early testing.
Let's for a moment, so let's just focus on that particular testing, because not many people will take too kindly to the word testing, especially coming from a psychologist. Could we focus on that a bit more? Could we break down precisely what you mean by testing?
Very good. And first of all, you don't need a psychologist to do some of these early and it's really early evaluation. It's really early evaluation. These things could happen in the classroom while they're doing a math class. This thing could happen in the classroom while they're doing English. It's just a matter of giving them a test to identify some level. Now, obviously, if there's an issue like autism or something like that, then the person will have to be referred to a specialist. Mm-hmm. But there are many, many tests, and tests could be a frightening word, but let's just say there are many evaluation tools that one can use to see if a child is acting at an age-appropriate stage in their educational development. Mm-hmm. But Keith?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I feel that even you and I, even having this discussion, getting lost with even the language of using testing and to identify troubled children, mm-hmm. And to identify the holes in the crack in the system. One of the things I am very, very conscious about is what we teach children. What do children learn while they're in school? You see, now this may seem really out of the box, but I'm saying, hey, how come we don't teach children to be human? Mm-hmm. How come we don't teach children to what dignity is about? How come we don't teach children what it means to be compassionate? Mm-hmm. Those are things that children really need to know so that they can become better citizens, better contributors to society. And I agree with the fact that all this testing at some level have to be done. But trust me, most of the I was having a discussion with somebody about this yesterday, mm-hmm. and I believe the budget for national security is probably, I don't know, twice times that of education. It needs to be the other way around, and where that money needs to go is really into better teacher education, better parenting, okay. But most of all, and when I say better teacher preparation, better teachers, showing teachers what they need to be and who they need to be in a classroom.
Mr. John, on that particular point, let me just interject for a moment here. Is it that you are suggesting that with the reform of the education system, which is something that has been spoken about for years now, very many years, and very little has been done about it beyond consultation, is it that teachers who are entering the service and teachers who are within the service already, perhaps for years, they themselves need continuous evaluation?
Absolutely. In most, so I taught up here for what, maybe 10 years. I taught in Trinidad for a number of years. And I know certainly in the US, every year there's continuous you're required to do continuous education training. Mm-hmm. You're required. And people use that time to not just develop their academic skills, but use that time to see, how can I be a better person in a classroom? How could I better influence students in a classroom? Mm-hmm. I came across, and I must read it to you. It's very short, but I came across something some years ago that a teacher, a principal wrote, and he gave it to another principal. And he wrote this: I'm a survivor of a concentration camp. My eyes saw what no person should witness. Gas chambers built by learned engineers. Children poisoned and educated by physicians. Infants killed by trained nurses. Women and babies shot and killed by high school and college graduates. So I'm suspicious of education. My request my request is help some students to be human. Your efforts must not lead to learned monsters, skilled psychopaths, and educated icons. Reading, arithmetic, English are nothing if they do not help to make your students human. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was a very powerful statement, because it speaks, I think, to the heart of what real teaching is about. Sure, the academics must be there, but there must be enough in there to show students that there's a way to deal with other people. There's a way to deal with their friends. There's a way to deal with their parents. There's a way to deal with their grandparents. There's a way to deal with their leaders in society. Not once did I say this is about a government something or a government something. This is about a leadership problem in the country. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying leadership because on many angles, leaders have been failing in the responsibilities that have been put before them.
Well, so I often link the leaders that we have, and some within the last few years and to now, I link them to being as machines. So if we are expecting children, we're trying to teach them to be humans, I don't know how we're going to succeed if it is that we have machines that are the ones that are really teaching them. But on that particular point as well, this seems as though it goes beyond just the Ministry of Education, beyond just the Ministry of National Security, given the fact that reform and the education system has come under scrutiny over the last few years. In terms of proactive measures, where do we start in terms of looking for solutions beyond the classroom?
Well, am I tempted to say it? Let's just say we need to start with some fresh thinking. And let me say, in saying that, it isn't that we have not done some things in the past that would be universally helpful for our students. It's just that we have tried some things and it has not worked. And we have not given things time enough to work, or we have not done, we think we can just do one thing at a time, when the approach must be multifaceted. There must be collaboration with social services, there must be collaboration with national security, there must be collaboration with school support services. And I think all these things have been done in silos and not with a real coming together of heads, leadership heads, really coming together and finding out not just what do we do for children, but what do we do for this particular child? Mm-hmm. Because it's not a one-shoe-fits-all package. That's why I go back to the teachers in the classroom, because they have to be astute enough, they have to be sharp enough to realize that Chris, he needs something different, and Lisa, she needs something different. Though they may be acting out in the same way in school, they may have different underlying needs that need to be responded. Maybe one person needs their glasses tested. Maybe they can't see on the board, and that's why they're acting out.
Well, Mr. John, let me I must get this final question in, given the time is almost out. But if we were to really cater to every single need and perhaps every single specialty that is required in order to be more student-centric, especially on the individual's developmental level, isn't that going to require a lot of resources, perhaps of which we just don't have?
Well, two answers to that. One, I don't believe we don't have it. I think we spend what we do have badly. Mm-hmm. That's one. And two, it does not mean, remember, every term, X amount of students are entering the school system. There are students who you can see may come from high-risk areas. Okay? Maybe initially that's where you have to put the attention. But in spite of that, in the classroom, teachers are becoming more aware of students. They're interacting with students. Students are talking to them. They get great opportunities to pick up early. So it's not to say you have to have this mass testing of every student that come into the system, but certainly there should be a mass alertness to students entering the system and alerted to the development and stages along the way.
Certainly. Well, Mr. John, I want to thank you very much for joining me on AM Prime this morning. It's certainly been a pleasure. This conversation has given us a lot to think about. And I do appreciate your column that was in the daily newspaper. But for now, sir, this is where we'll have to end it. And thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good day.
You too, Guy.
Yeah. Well, folks, Mr. Ronald John, psychologist, a very, very intriguing discussion indeed. It goes beyond just the student. It also focuses on the teacher, on those in authority, and even how the mismanagement of the resources that were available and are available to us has actually only added and compounded this issue. We take a break here on AM Prime, and when we return, we welcome our other guest this morning, focusing more so on our local features here, local film features. We'll be right back after this.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best for your baby is at dbesttoys.com. We have the best strollers, car seats, walkers, feeding accessories, playpens, cribs, clothing, and the widest range of brand name toys like Barbie, Hot Wheels, Nerf, LOL, Fisher-Price, Cocomelon, Intex pools, Amazon Fire tablets, HP and Gateway laptops, and the best bikes, scooters, skateboards, and ride-on. Visit us in-store at Southern Main Road, MacBean, or shop online now at dbesttoys.com. That's dbesttoys.com. We have the best toys at the best prices.
Varicose veins is a serious medical condition that causes significant pain and debility.
The varicose veins might appear because the body is trying to form alternative pathways. And next thing you know, you're going to treat that, and you've left an undiagnosed DVT there, which can be life-threatening. And if you don't diagnose and treat that, then you're treating the varicose veins, but you've ignored a big problem.
What's Up, Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you do in R&B.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white, and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
welcome back to AM Prime here on WESN. This morning, we're taking a look at a local film feature, a film called Sky Glow, which we'll get into in a moment. But first, let's take a look at this trailer.
Then everything changed.
Ellie!
I promise, I will find you.
Well, Kyron Jeffers is the film director for Sky Glow, and Thomas Troymer, he's an actor and a production assistant for Sky Glow. They're both with us this morning on AM Prime. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
It's certainly a pleasure, and I'm happy to always feature something local, especially from young-minded individuals who are trying to break through. So let's focus a bit on the synopsis, because I was reading it the first time that I saw it. I'm very much interested in this story. It speaks very much of society, but also focuses on societal issues from an individual level. In a world where love and connection gives the young power, an individual must actually confront his past following the kidnapping of his girlfriend. Karen, let's start with you. Speak specifically as to the inspiration behind directing this particular film and the writing of the script.
Okay, well, for me, I'm a person of faith, and that really infuses every part of my life. And of course, some of those faith-based Christian values speak to love, speak to connection in our everyday lives. But I'm also a champion for social issues when it comes to using creative work and creative design to solve social problems. So, there was a moment of inspiration. I'm really into music, different types, different forms and whatnot. And there was a time that I was, spending some time listening to some music, and I saw images of what seemed to me like a woman calling out for her first love, but almost as if it was telepathically, and a story began to form in my mind. And I really felt that premise could be used as a vehicle to tackle some interesting personal stories and social issues. And that's basically how it started, yeah.
When you say tackling of some very interesting personal issues, is that focused more so on yourself? Because sometimes they say a lot of the inspiration for a film comes from within, from the director and from the producers. Is it focusing on perhaps some personal experiences?
For sure. I try to mix various perspectives in my filmmaking and storytelling, because I don't want to just be so focused on me that it's not relatable to others. So there are some personal experiences that I have had, along with some other experiences that I've had with friends that I mixed into this story, especially from a relationship perspective, the perspective of an outgoing, empowered woman who is in a relationship with an introverted young man who was bullied, who is uncertain of himself, but she sees his inner potential. She sees his character, his inner power. She sees things in him that he doesn't see in himself. So, I really found that would be a really interesting story to tackle.
Well, Thomas, let's speak about your character for a moment in this particular film feature. I mean, speak to us about the exact role that you play in this film.
Okay, my character is Esteban Lunas. Esteban Lunas is a librarian, right? He's a bit reserved, quiet. So that's the personality, I guess, that's displayed, right? And he's a bit he's very interesting, I'd say. He, looks can be deceiving, but he is not exactly everyday librarian, and he brings out the best in the lead character, that is Judas, and he brings it out in different. Well, the way he does it is interesting, but it does happen, and that is his role in the film, I'd say.
But beyond just character development and supporting the leading actor, you also focus a lot on being a production assistant. And you know, many people might not truly understand what a production assistant is or what they do. You know, especially for a short film such as this. Could you speak to us about that role?
Right. So production assistant essentially, well, everything to do with production. So assisting in arrangements, like the setups, exactly, like lighting, you know, audio, those types of things. So,
all right. Okay.
like,
So
audio.
let's change focus for a bit. You gentlemen have put out your resources. You've put out your creative minds, and you've come up with this concept. You've filmed it, you've edited, and it's going to air very soon. Speak to us about the support that you have received, or perhaps the difficulties along the way in getting this from just a script and a coming together of ideas to the big screen.
I'll take that question. For me, it started off with persons who believed in my vision. Really, we had a great line producer in the person of Leander Tate, who started on the project very early. Thomas also started on the project really early while it was just a bare bones idea and a bare bones script. And what I've found is as you move forward with your vision, the people, the resources, the opportunities then come in. So subsequent to that, we were able to receive financial assistance and sponsorship from Film TT, which was the major driving force to get the film off the road. And then from there, we were able to connect with different individuals in the industry, persons with 20 years experience, 15 years experience, a lot of really, really great talent, persons like Karen Lemessy. We had Shannon Coburn as a SFX makeup artist. So we have some surprises in store because that trailer, it's just a teaser.
Well, you received funding from Film TT, and then even support from those in the industry for 15, 20 years. But as two young gentlemen, how would you see this film industry here in TNT, the local film industry? Because even if you're receiving financial support, do you still think that all bodies and all entities are coming together to support the existing structures of the film industry? Are we seeing a new wave of thinkers, or is it that it's an industry that is dying, as is perhaps the opinion of many people in the public who don't even know about Film TT?
I would say the film industry is growing, in my opinion. We have some really skilled and diverse storytellers, and we have an expanding array of film festivals. You know, we recently had the Film and Folklore Festival. We're going to be partnering with the Hillview College Film Festival for our screening. There's the Rollywood Film Festival, there's the Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival. And I think that it's really, the support comes after the entrepreneurial actions of the filmmaker, in my opinion. You really need to step out with a story that connects with others, and you will receive the support of those who share your vision and share your values. All right. Granted, there are risks involved, but risk is connected to reward. So there's a level of bravery that needs to be extended by the filmmaker, and then support will come. But of course, you know, others may not see the opportunity or see it as a viable option. Right? Let's say if you have a teen that's interested in film, the parents might be concerned, okay, so how my child is going to make money. But I see, when young people are involved in film, I see it as them being an athlete. So you want to start early, you want to practice regularly in order to get opportunities which can then grow your career. And with a growth mindset as opposed to a goal mindset, a goal-oriented mindset, you want to grow into your field and into your space. And perhaps you may not start in your industry. You may start doing accounts. You may start being an admin assistant. But as you make steps towards your goal and your vision, you can achieve your destiny.
Thomas, that very many points as specified by Mr. Jeffers there, but risk is linked to reward. Most recently I met an individual, she says it was her goal, her dream to be an actor on the local stage, and that is not working out thus far for her, so she has to try and diversify her skills and her areas in order to actually support herself. Is it a risk actually being an actor here in TNT? Is it a risk you even going into this field as far as you already have, not only as an actor but as a production assistant? Would you encourage young people to try and move in this direction?
Yeah, I definitely would. To be honest, this is my first time acting. Like this, with zero experience, this was my first time acting, and Karen pulled me aboard, and it definitely changed the course of my life. And it was the most fun I've ever had in a long time. And this was during COVID, right? And with all the COVID measures and whatnot involved, it was so tough, right? So it's not an easy thing. It's not something you would do because it's easy. It is difficult, and there are a lot of challenges. But the challenges, it makes it even better, and it makes you a lot stronger. And if you are determined, you will be where you need to reach, definitely. And since this was my first time acting, I wasn't the most experienced in being in front of the camera. I had a lot of challenges. Usually I'm the guy behind camera, right? So because of my acting coach, Michaela Almondez, and the amazing director, Karen, they brought out the best in me, what was already there, right? So basically, they pulled out all this talent we had in us, embedded, and that's on display at Skyglow.
Mm-hmm. If people do not share in your beliefs or your ideas, then you may not necessarily get the support. But I'm glad to hear that thus far, really, all the resources have been put forward and the support external to just the crew is there. Is the film industry here in Trinidad and Tobago an avenue to exploit in terms of income, in terms of revenue? Do we need more done, and do we need more to be done in order to put local films on the world stage? Karen, let's start with you.
I would say that's a really big question with a lot of moving parts. You know, that speaks to to me, it speaks to the sectoral innovation mapping of the film industry to see what linkages exist in order to strengthen the financial capacity of the industry. Because it's such a large question, I would avoid speaking in total terms, but I would share my contribution. I think there's a great opportunity financially for franchises. And when I say franchises, ideas with world building elements that will allow you to develop multiple stories or multiple arcs, right? If I was to borrow from some of the more popular franchises, you have the Star Wars, you have the MCU, but all of those productions started off, like let's say MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it started off with Stan Lee having an idea in his mind and releasing it in a small capacity that he could handle through comics, right? There's a lot of world building behind Skyglow, a lot of backstory, a lot of systems that inform the characters in terms of what they could do, and that can be used to create many different expressions of the story, whether it's a comic, whether it's written material, whether it's more short films, whether it's more episodes. It could be used to create merchandise. It could be used to tell a story that creates a social impact, right? So film, for example, if you was to think about it as a social entrepreneurship opportunity, you can use the film to tackle social issues and enhance the corporate social responsibility outreaches of an organization, right? So that is my contribution there. The financial opportunity could be gained through franchising. And I also think that when a business is good, being good for the community, I think, is also good for business. So I think every business should have within its mind, what can I do for my community? What can I do for society around me? And maybe one of the things I could do is invest in films and storytelling and entertainment that could really transform the social ecology I'm in.
Well, gentlemen, my final question to both Troy and to Kyron this morning. Thomas Troy Mahes, we'll start with you. The last point that was raised by Mr. Jeffers there, what film can do for society, is it good for society? Why is Sky Glow something people should view? Why is Sky Glow something people should go to watch? Beyond just the fact that, well, we're trying to support local, we're trying to support these young gentlemen and these young entrepreneurs. How is Sky Glow good for society?
Right. So even in Sky Glow, like Kyron mentioned there, we do focus on social issues. There are social issues mentioned in Sky Glow, right? So that alone, that's one, right? And Sky Glow is not like your traditional film, I would say, from Trinidad and Tobago. Like usually it would be centered around like a lot of culture and whatnot. It's not that type of film. You might look at it and see it more like an international film, you know, but it does have a lot of Trinidadian aspects to it, right? So that's 2. And 3, it's filled with young people. It's filled with our determination in our characters to strive for what they believe in. So it gives us that aspect of faith and belief and makes us stronger. And when you look at Sky Glow, right, you would think that of yourself and you would want to definitely feel inspired, right, from this film. Mm-hmm. And it's just the beginning. This is just the beginning, and we have a long way to go. So hopefully, and, you know, we'll get there.
Kyron, your final thoughts?
I would say that there's some surprises in store. There's some surprises in store for... what do I say? I mean, when you come to see Sky Glow, you don't know what you may actually see, you know, beyond what the trailer shows. So just be in store for some surprises when you actually see the film.
Well, the trailer certainly doesn't give away that much, which I say is good. It's actually good. The entire movie is not in that trailer, which all too often many of the bigger films tend to do. But, gentlemen, thank you very much, and thank you very much for joining us on AM Prime this morning. You can look out for Sky Glow coming to the big screen and near you very soon. Keep well and all the best, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure to having us.
Well, local film feature here on AM Prime. Young-minded entrepreneurs here trying to make a difference and trying to break through. And certainly we're glad to know that there are the supporting factors and supporting elements beyond just the team that we spoke to this morning. There is a long way to go, but at least there is a start. That is most important. Let's take a break here on AM Prime, and when we return, we'll get into your regional updates.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered,
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Gentlemen, welcome back to AM Prime, folks. Thank you for staying with us this morning as we get into your regional update to take a look at what's happening across the Caribbean with our CARICOM neighbours. Now, the dry season is in full swing and Saharan dust is blanketing us all throughout the Caribbean. And one island, Antigua and Barbuda, their Public Utilities Minister, the Honourable Melford Nicholas, spoke last week where he mentioned government's continued efforts to try and ensure that there's water distribution for all on the islands. Let's take a look at this.
Officials at the Antigua Public Utilities Authority, APUA, have been hard at work revamping this country's supply of water. However, the vast network and antiquated piping have made the overhaul difficult. That's according to Minister with Responsibility for Public Utilities, the Honourable Melford Nicholas.
The approximately 37 miles of pipe in Antigua in the transmission and distribution system. And the vast majority of it, more than 80% of it, are old cast iron pipes. And where over the period of the last 20 years, APUA would have been in the process of removing some of those cast iron pipes and replacing them with the hard white PVC pipes. Those pipes are known to malfunction after 10 years.
The modernization, however, he says, will be costly and will take some time.
Remove 10 miles of those pipes and to replace them, it's going to cost approximately 40 million EC dollars in the first instance. So there's going to be an ongoing, I would say, even 5, 7, 10-year challenge to be able to get up to par where the entire infrastructure of distribution pipes and transmission pipes are replaced.
More than just the revamping of the piping system, the minister is convinced the overall hydraulic system will need to be altered.
There are issues in relation to the transmission system of the utility. It's an old, antiquated system that depends a lot of manual switching, a manual changing of manual valves, and that's just not the modern way to go. So the whole hydraulic system relating to the transmission and distribution of water is an issue of concern, and we have to make those investments as well.
The minister says the problem will be rectified on an incremental basis, but other pressing issues of supply must take priority. For ABS News, I'm Ursula Charles Jr.
Find it quite intriguing that in 2023 we're still aiming for water for all, not only here in Trinidad and Tobago, but across the region and the wider world as well. And in the instance of Antigua and Barbuda, they have to overhaul their entire system, as it starts with the pipes that they've laid. They have old cast iron pipes, and they have to actually remove all those from the system and lay new pipes. So a lot is taking place there. But that's the update that the Honourable Minister Melford Nicholas, he gave at last week's post-cabinet media briefing. We move forward now to Barbados, where the Minister of State in the Office of the Attorney General with responsibility for crime prevention, Corey Lane, well, he is urging boardroom gangsters to open their hearts and do more to work with offenders. He made these statements suggesting that if this is not done, a peace truce that was recently brokered between warring gangs will prove ineffective. Let's take a look at this report.
One of the greatest difficulties I have found is not with the gatekeepers, or we call the gang leaders, or people in the street. Yes, I know regard by their say. I said to my colleagues, my friends and family, when I got this position, they were so fearful for me. Oh, are they going to give you security? And I am not afraid of gangsters in the streets. I am afraid of the gangsters in the boardrooms. That's what I'm afraid of. And what do I mean is because we are not comfortable with change. So let me go down the road. This is what we can do. What we can do is get him back to understanding that we got one team in Barbados and called Team Barbados. What we can understand and start to play out in our daily lives, it is that we don't got anything in this country, we don't have anything in this country called them young people, them boys and girls on the block. We don't have that. Those are our young people. And if you think that that is a small point, let me tell you the experience over the last 5 weeks. When this thing about a peace truce and peace this and that was announced, the sort of reaction that I got from people I thought should know better was about, what peace for, man? They can't have a spell peace. What peace for? No, that ain't last. Man, they only doing that to think they want money or something. Somebody pay them to do that. That's the sort of thing. Now, that may seem small to you. Now, remember, to me, the getting of the peace, truth and things, that's not what's important. You know. The maintaining of it, the keeping of it is what is important. The getting there is only a small first step. The staying there is what benefits all of us. So, when you have to go now to persons, again, in authority, boards, whatever, and I don't name specific boards, speaking generally, it's just a figure of speech. And he said, man, I don't want these people in my place. I don't want them people doing this. Now, these people come and say, listen, we want to do legitimate stuff. Are we going to give them the benefit of the doubt? Are we going to give them a chance? Now, let me make the link to the sea to you on what you can do. What we got to do is start acting like what we say we are. Good Christian people who are there to walk among everyone, who's there willing to give people a chance. And I like to talk about a first chance, because a lot of times we talk about a second chance, but the reality is that a lot of these people never had a first one to start with. When you look into their story, when you look into their history, they never had a first chance to begin with. Am I saying let's punish bad behavior? No. Am I saying let's facilitate a mafia or a cartel? No. Am I saying if you have done wrong, you should not be punished to the full extent of the law and the cherry on top? No. I'm saying let's do all of those things. But also let us open our minds and our hearts and understand that there is such a wedge between the them and the us, and that is how we got here in the first place.
Spirituality and religion always comes back into the conversation, as mentioned there by the Honourable Corey Lane. Says we need to focus on what we are first, which is good Christian people. But he's also seemed to have taken a very strong approach to the situation, saying that he expected better from individuals, and he has not gotten the response that he sought. Now, I'd like to digress for a moment. I'd like to ask, could a peace truce, could that be brokered between warring gangs here in Trinidad and Tobago? Should we even go as far as to try and broker such a truce here in TNT? Is it that we're giving gangs the opportunity for for their members to rehabilitate themselves with the support of society and perhaps find a way out of a life of crime and into one that is legal and legitimate. Well, that is something to seriously consider and think about, given that that is happening in Barbados. Is it something that, given everything that encompasses the situation in Barbados, could that be applicable to society here in Trinidad and Tobago as well? So think about it. And that is a conversation that you should certainly have with yourself and perhaps wider society. Now, we move on this morning with our regional updates, and now we move across to Grenada. The government of Grenada is looking to diversify its sources of funding. In fact, Africa is being looked at for financial assistance. Now, this was revealed by the Prime Minister and former Minister of Finance, Dickon Mitchell. Let's take a look at this.
The Dickon Mitchell-led administration is looking at non-traditional lending institutions for concessionary financing to drive Grenada's economic growth.
We are also looking at and have initiated becoming members of additional lending and financing institutions. So Cabinet, for instance, on Monday approved Grenada joining the partnership agreement between the OECS CARICOM and the Afrexim Bank. The Afrexim is the shorthand for the African Export-Import Bank, which is a subsidiary of the African Development Bank.
Prime Minister Mitchell says that the government is exploring other possibilities when it comes to borrowing money.
Part of this is to look at how we can leverage non-traditional lending institutions, particularly to assist private sector entities within the OECS and in Grenada to get additional concessionary financing. We are also looking at exploring the possibility of becoming a member of the Caribbean and Latin American Development Bank, which is in short known as CAF. The team at the Ministry of Finance is currently reviewing that situation with the hope that we can get cabinet approval in the not too distant future to also be able to partner with that institution.
The former Minister for Finance says that climate change initiatives will play a critical role in receiving concessionary funding.
Explore things like carbon trading. We are also keen to explore how we address climate change as a concept to leverage for more concessionary financing, given the challenges that we face from climate change. So the Ministry of Environment and Climate Resilience is also key to that. We are seeking to have Grenada and the Ministry accredited to a number of the climate-related funds to see whether we can also access concessionary financing from that.
Mike Sylvester, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, says that the ministry is currently in the process of mobilizing financial support from the IMF, the World Bank, CARICOM Development Bank, and the Central Bank. Nisha Peters, GBN News.
So Grenada is looking for financial options beyond the traditional lending organizations, and I'm wondering what is the thinking behind that, because it was not completely focused on in that report. But one could only think that the restrictions or the limitations as is associated with the traditional lending facilities such as the World Bank, well, that is not applicable to these outside institutions such as those found within the continent of Africa. So something to certainly focus on and perhaps stand by for updates here on AM Prime with respect to that development. But let's move across to Jamaica now, where alarms are being raised by medical experts, especially by infectious disease consultants at the University Hospital of the West Indies, Dr. Kathy Pate Robinson, over the Candida auris fungal infection. She says that this situation is alarming and is further compounded by the fact that Jamaica does not have the proper facilities to have fungal testing done. We take a look at this report.
Welcome back. We're continuing the news. Now, in this evening's edition of the Health Report, Shamila Pullen looks at Candida auris.
A fungal superbug called Candida auris is spreading rapidly through hospitals and nursing homes in the U.S. Candida auris is an emerging fungus that presents a serious global health threat. Although concerned, The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, has not been tracking deaths related to the condition. But what's certain is that a number of people have been getting sick, partly because it is resistant to multiple antifungal drugs commonly used to treat the infections. Infectious diseases consultant at the University Hospital of the West Indies, Dr. Kathy Pate Robinson, says medical experts suspect there are cases in Jamaica.
The challenge is that we don't have good fungal testing. So we can't do in-house in the island a lot of the fungal identification tests. And that's perhaps more of a resource limitation. Testing is a lot more expensive for those kinds of germs. And so we don't easily identify the funguses that we have. We have been expanding our testing capability as fast as we can, but we don't have endless funds, so we're still limited.
People who are very sick or who have long or frequent stays in healthcare facilities or a weakened immune system are at increased risk.
What we're seeing with Candida auris is it is often invading into the bloodstream. So then you get a bloodstream infection or a fungemia, and that could mean that anywhere that the blood goes in your body could be infected. So that could lead to a heart infection, an infective endocarditis, which is 100% fatal without treatment. And because this fungus is a lot harder to kill and also harder to identify.
The condition shows no signs or symptoms, but fever and chills are associated with it. Dr. Pate Robinson says drugs to treat Candida auris are expensive and are not readily available.
So that means that you might then have to order it from overseas. That will take time to come, and that is going to be at a significant cost. For one of the agents that's a little more available to us in terms of being able to, say, order it from Miami, you might spend between $600,000 and $1 million for one course of treatment. That's not available to the average person in the population.
Persons are encouraged to practice proper hygiene and wear face masks when possible. With our health report, I'm Shamela Pullen, wishing you good health.
Wishing you good health indeed. I think any alarm raised over such a serious illness, in this case a fungal infection, is one that will raise eyebrows and concerns all around. As mentioned, the resources that are necessary for the testing capacity on the island of Jamaica is not available. Even the expense of the treatment is not something that the average Jamaican could afford. This is certainly alarming, certainly raising bells all across the Caribbean, and nothing mentioned here in Trinidad and Tobago as yet. But one I would hope that the authorities are keeping an eye on. Now, this may sound rather harsh or cruel, but is there opportunity out of a situation like this where perhaps we can be a facility or a manufacturer of medical equipment and even medical drugs? Well, maybe that is something to also look at, because if we are able to produce such goods and services down here in TNT, or even any island in the Caribbean, then does that in itself help in the fight where we're not entirely dependent on the wider world for resources? Well, certainly something to consider, ladies and gentlemen. But that's it for your regional update this morning. Stay tuned to AM Prime. We'll be right back after this.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces Flagship Mac Bean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Varicose veins is a serious medical condition that causes significant pain and debility.
The varicose veins might appear because the body is trying to form alternative pathways. And next thing you know, you go and treat that, and you've left an undiagnosed DVT there, which can be life-threatening. And if you don't diagnose and treat that, then you're treating the varicose veins, but you've ignored a big problem.
What's Up, Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Well, last week, the Fire Service Association met with members of the Ministry of National Security to speak on long-standing issues that, according to the president of the association, need immediate attention. Now, following that meeting, he described it as extremely disappointing, suggesting that they're nowhere closer to finding such solutions. We're joined now by the president of the Fire Service Association, Mr. Leo Ramkisoon. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. Extremely disappointing is how you describe this meeting with the Ministry of National Security. So, were you expecting any different?
Well, I mean, for us in the association, particularly for me, hope springs eternal. I mean, that hope is all we have to hold on to. If I'm to be realistic, I did not expect them to, be able to acquire appliances in such short notice. But we would have hoped that some measures would have been come up with to be able to bring some level of relief. This issue is not just only about the appliances. It is also the shortage of personal protective equipment for the officers as well. And whilst the appliances may take a long time to procure, and even parts, one would have hoped that at least the smaller items such as the breathing apparatus sets and other personal protective equipment such as uniform and gloves and so on, one would have thought that those items would be, incoming in a shorter time frame. So having gotten the information that the process of acquiring those personal protective equipment is still a ways off, such that the ministry and the administration couldn't provide a more specified time frame within which officers could expect them, then of course we would have been very, very disappointed, because I have to take into consideration that officers, as we speak, are entering into smoke-filled environment to perform firefighting. They are entering into hazardous environments with chemical spills and exposure to carcinogens and so on without breathing apparatus sets, meaning they have not enough personal protective equipment, so that they are inhaling and absorbing very deadly toxins. And all of that in an effort to conduct firefighting and rescues and to serve the public. So again, without any news that the relief would be coming in short order, we of course are very, very, very disappointed.
You said you do not blame fire officers if they were to exercise their rights under sections 14 and 15 of the OSH Act by not showing up to work. Has there been any sign or any mention of such action being undertaken soon?
No, the officers, that is a difficult thing for officers to engage in. I mean, of course, when the chief fire officer made some statements last week where he sought to assign blame to officers for the conditions of trucks, officers would have felt very, 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 very unappreciated for the least, and in many instances very disrespected. And there would have been discussions on the ground where officers started to consider the fact that they are making a personal sacrifice, one in which the law does not compel them to make that sacrifice. In other words, the law provides that where officers are placed at a risk to life or limb that is not reasonable in the course of their duty. In other words, it is reasonable for the employer in this instance to provide the tools to do the job. And where the employer is not doing so, they are within their rights to refuse to operate. And officers continue to operate. And I'll tell you why they continue to operate. again, it's not because they are lawfully mandated. It is because when they are called upon to respond to distress calls from the public, the mental anguish it would take to refuse to operate because they are taking a stand for the right thing, for the employer to do the correct thing, and having to weigh that against the needs of the public, it is a difficult pill to swallow. So they, in most instances, opt to giving up their own self, sacrificing their own health and safety in order to do their job, so that at the end of the day, the public benefits from it. But again, the officers are coming out with the short end of the stick in most instances.
Well, Chief Fire Officer Bristow has described the association's meeting, well, the comments regarding the meeting with the Ministry of National Security as disingenuous. As you would have just mentioned, he also laid the blame for the conditions of fire appliances on that of fire service officers. Now, you've stood firm, you're demanding an apology and saying that you reject on all grounds the statements made by the Chief Fire Officer. Are we seeing some sort of cracks between servicemen here and the strength of the fire service as a whole? If there's no relationship, or there seems to be a breakdown in the relationship between the Chief Fire Officer and the Fire Service Association, is it now that the arguments being put forward are weakened?
Well, those statements really are unfortunate, and they seek to really undermine the efforts of the association in our advocacy for remedying the problem. The Chief Fire Officer admitted that releases were not being made available to the fire service. He admitted the shortages of trucks. He admitted all that was said, save and except that he contradicted the amount of stations that he said wasn't functional. You know, he said that there were only 5 and not 8. While those statements are unfortunate and in many instances affect officers deeply, we are not focused on laying blame and who's to blame and so on. First and foremost, the reality that must be rectified with immediacy is to put trucks in those stations and provide officers with the personal protective equipment that they need. I want to stay focused on those things. Clearly, the chief has indicated where the problem is. It is to the procurement process and so on. It is not, in fact, what he said in terms of blaming officers. So I'm not going to take that on, and I urge officers, don't let that affect you. I am saying that we must stay focused on what the real issue is, because you see, when the association and the Chief Fire Officer and the administration engage in a tit for tat, it doesn't help the public, it doesn't help us, and so on. The issue here is that the state needs to give the support to the fire service that is needed, because from what the chief is saying to us behind closed doors is the issue is gaining the releases and so on to purchase and to actually move the organization forward. He made clear, he also said, and I'm sure you would have heard him say, he said that the Chief Fire Officer is only able to spend up to a particular amount. I think it's 100,000 or 200,000, and anything above that has to go for the PS, the Permanent Secretary's approval, or the Cabinet. And he is asking for that to be reviewed. That alone is an admittance that he is being strangled or stymied in his ability to really address the issues in the fire service. So this is where our focus, we want to place our focus and not get engaged in a tit for tat with the Chief Fire Officer.
Well, staying focused is one thing, but back to the issues at hand. I recently saw a report which indicates that even the structures of some fire stations across the nation is in jeopardy. I know there was focus on an incident that happened at the Roxborough Fire Station when an officer slipped, fell. That has not been addressed. The Crown Point Fire Station also, that is due to be reconstructed. And even fire stations here in Trinidad and Tobago, the quality of the structure is very much hazardous. Has there been any sort of notification beyond just the procurement of fire appliances and PPE as to when such infrastructural developments will happen?
Well, you know, Roxborough Fire Station is relatively new. That station was just constructed, and the leaks that you have that I referred to in other places in that station is the leaks in the roof of the building. So that's structural issues already. So, and that is not uncommon. You have that situation also occurring in Piaco Fire Station, Santa Cruz, Sangre Grande. Many of these stations have roof leaking problems. And when you have that, you have water getting in and seeping into the walls and other parts of the infrastructure, and there's a mold buildup. And officers are becoming ill, you know, when they occupy these buildings and so on. So, and you have many other conditions of station issues that we have been discussing with the ministry and the administration. And again, those items need the attention of the state to move the thing forward. San Juan Fire Station, the Kariri did a study of the station and found that there needs to be HEPA filters installed in the station to protect the officers, because there's a high buildup of carbon monoxide and other contaminants that the officers are living in once they occupy that station, and they are absorbing. So there were recommendations being made for some time now, and they seem to be moving at snail's pace in terms of addressing those issues. And that again is a cause for concern. Point 14 station, Rio Claro, right? All of these stations, Siparia, Chagaramas, all of these stations have their particular issues affecting them. And all we have been getting really is discussions on them, promises, you know, very, very slow movement. All we have is the agreement that these stations need addressing, but we don't have it actually materializing. And that's where we really need these issues to be addressed.
Well, I have two final questions. Given that we're in the dry season and there's been constant fire safety tips that have been issued, I think even you said individuals need to take some level of personal responsibility by installing fire alarms and even fire extinguishers within their homes and within their property, which is a cost to the citizen, by the way. We've also had issues with respect to water restrictions and water shortages. So even if a fire appliance is available at a fire station, is there enough water resources that are available at fire stations to tackle any emergency?
Most stations, most trucks would get water for the relevant tank of the truck, the tank of the appliance, at hydrants within the particular community. And some of these hydrants don't always have water in them. So, you know, managing that issue takes some liaison with the Water and Sewerage Authority to ensure that a ready supply of water is made available to those hydrants where the officers replenish. Sometimes it's difficult. The truck has to go quite some distance to be refilled, but by and large, that issue has been managed. The issue really is having trucks at stations so that officers themselves can have a ready supply on the truck, having tankers to move.
Mr. Ram, yes, go ahead, sir.
And barring that, when you have trucks at stations, the officers can be easily mobilized to check hydrants and to ensure the hydrants in the community are serviceable. So the trucks have a very, very important role, not just to bring water and have a ready supply of water, but to move personnel to actually have the relevant firefighting implements and so on, like fire hydrants and so on, serviceable, so that the community will benefit from that type of protection. But yes, I want to, advise members of the public, it is in their own interests to ensure that your surroundings are kept safe from bushfires and any threats to your property and life. Ensure that your property is kept clean in terms of the vegetation, dry vegetation and so on. Keep a smoke detector in your building, install them. They are not very expensive. If you can and you can afford a fire extinguisher, that would be also advisable. And to, go up on the internet and check on the fire service website. You will be able to get some safety tips there. Officers are always willing to try to advise members of the public as to the best ways to keep your home and your family safe.
And my final question this morning is from a historical standpoint. Hello? Can you hear me? Mr. Ramkissoon, are you still with us? All right, it seems as though that we've lost connectivity with Mr. Ramkissoon. My final question to him, I'm so sorry that I was not able to ask him this, but from a historical context, from independence, post-independence, and now, could we name a time when the Trans-Tobago Fire Service was actually in a good position or a good state? But unfortunately, we've lost Mr. Ramkissoon there. So thank you very much, sir, for joining us on AM Prime this morning. We'll continue to monitor the situation as it develops. Folks, we take a quick break here on AM Prime. When we return, we'll wrap things up for this morning's edition of the program. We'll be right back.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this is screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back to AM Prime, and as we wrap things up for this morning's edition of the program, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the front page of this morning's Newsday. And where is the ammo Earl Airwood Christopher. This is the question being asked by one gun dealer. This is following a lawsuit with regards to 500 rounds of ammunition that was actually confiscated from the dealer, but since then has not been returned. So questions surrounding that has once more arisen. But again, this is not necessarily a new story. Old question, still no answer. And the Newsday Tobago edition, how ironic actually the conversation that we were having this morning. Look at that. Fire services are struggling Tobago stations among those listed for upgrades. If you're building a new airport in Tobago, shouldn't we build a new fire station to go along with it? Well, I wonder if they considered that. And if we take a look at the sports section, Golden Flurry horse racing yesterday over the weekend. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for AM Prime. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and thank you to all our guests. We do hope that you were informed or perhaps a bit more educated, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning. Have a great day. Bye-bye.